for round 4 of our Regents review videos. Hopefully you're not too tired of hearing my voice. Let's get started. So we're taking a look at number 1. This is a statistics question, so I'm going to let you read it and then I'll give you my little hint afterwards. All right, so for this one, right, you kind of you see, right, the teacher does what? She randomly divides her students into 2 groups. One she grades the homework for, the other one she doesn't grade the homework for, then she compares. So this is one where she's actually conducting an experiment, right? Because she's trying to see if the test scores are affected by whether or not the homework is graded or the homework is not graded. In this case, right, that would be answer choice number 1. And we're moving on. Number 2, right, you're given a function and you're also given g of x, and you want to find out the quotient of f of x over g of x. I look at this one, right, sometimes if I put f of x on top of g of x and I'm trying to maybe try to factor, right, to simplify, I don't really see that one works. But if I look over here, right, this looks like something where I could use polynomial division. So I would set it up, right, and I'd say, just like before, right, x minus 3, and then inside my parentheses, I have 2x to the power 3 minus 3x squared minus 5x minus 12, right? I always like to start just because I think it helps you organize, right? Come over here, it's what's my leading term? 2x cubed. And that's being divided by just x. So I know, right, when I simplify here, my first term has to be 2x squared. So the 2x squared always goes, right, I like to keep it in a little column along with the other x squareds. Right off the bat, right, we can kind of knock off 2 and 4, right, because it's not going to be x cubed. Multiply 2x squared times x. That tells me I'm doing something right because I want to subtract this, and I know this should cancel out. And I'm also saying, well, 2x squared minus 3, so it's going to be negative 6x squared. But since I'm subtracting, right, subtracting a negative, I have to make it into a positive. I always have to just do it and switch the sign, right? So that would be negative 6x squared, switch the sign, it's positive 6x. Cancel, I'm left with now 3x squared. Bring down my minus 5x, doing it again. What's my leading term? 3x squared. I'm dividing by the same leading term in the front, so I'm left with 3x. So it's a positive 3x. 3x times x, 3x squared. Subtract it. 3x times negative 3 is negative 9x, but I know I have to switch signs, so it's going to be positive 9x, cancels out, left with 4x. One more step, right, bring down the minus 12. 4x, I'm not going to show that over here, right, 4x over x is just positive 4. 4 times x minus 4x. 4 times 3 is negative 12, but I have to add it, switch the sign. So in this case, I get lucky. I have a remainder of 0, so when I divide, I'm just getting 2x squared plus 3x plus 4. Answer choice number 1. Moving on. This one I think is tricky, right? It says Abby is told that each day there's a 50% chance it will rain. Which simulation can Abby perform to determine the likelihood of it raining for the next 7 days, right? Keyword here, right, is going to be this word simulation, right? If you think of any of the like the stats questions, they always say they're conducting a simulation, they do it a bunch of times, right? So that means, right, you're kind of running an experiment and then you're going to repeat the experiment a ton of times. So if they think, right, 50% chance it will rain in the next 7 days, so like let's say that's kind of like a week, what do you want to do? Well, you want to flip a coin 7 times, right? That counts for the week. You want to count how many heads, because you can say heads or tails, right? It's a 50-50 shot. The heads would be maybe that it's raining. And then, right, once you get the count on how many heads you get for those 7 times, which is like the amount of times in the day, you're going to do it 50 times, right? 50 times would be about a year, because you would be simulating the 52 weeks of a year. So in this case, right, key in on the word simulation and then figure out like what type of simulation you're running. 7 times is the week. The heads counts for if it's going to rain, and then you're repeating it a bunch of times, right? In this case, I think it's a toss-up between number 1 and 4, but number 1 is the correct one. Moving on to number 4, right? Number 4 has us, it looks actually super similar to number 2, right? Because you would have, right, you could have a function and then it's being divided by another function. You could play around with the way that this like 4x squared minus 5 works and do it a little bit simpler. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to do it just like I did before, right? I'm going to say, well, what's being divided? I got my 4x squared minus 5, and then it's all being divided by what? X squared minus 1. And that's why I like to do that, like leading coefficients, or the leading terms, right? 4x squared all over x squared, because what happens here? The x squareds cancel out. I'm just left with 4, right? So I'm going to put the 4 over here, right up on top of the 5. Well, 4 times x squared is 4x squared. Subtracting that, 4 times negative 1 is negative 4, but you know I'm adding 4. What am I left with? My remainder is negative 1, so what's my answer? 4, and then plus, but really what you're saying is you're going to be plusing a negative 1, so it's got to be minus 1 over x squared minus 1, which is answer choice number 1. Looking good. And my last one, right? I'm given an imaginary, we know I is the imaginary unit. Which expression is equivalent to this? So you got a bunch of stuff going on here. I'm going to take it one little piece at a time, right? I know my first little part I could distribute into here, so I would be left with what? 5. I'd be left with 10xi. I always have to write the I last. And I'd also be left with plus 15i squared. Over here, I know, right, the square root of a negative number gives me, right, an imaginary number. So this is really going to be 3i. Positive 3i, right? Do not, remember the negative is the I. The 9 becomes the 3. What am I subtracting? I'm subtracting minus x times 3i. So I'm going to be subtracting minus 3xi. I don't see anything like that over here. That's because my right I squared has to get turned into a negative 1. So if I say 10xi minus 3xi is going to give me 7xi. I'm adding my like terms. And then this is just going to become negative 15, right? Because it's going to be basically 15 times negative 1. I have an answer choice over here. Answer choice number 4. I'm good to go. It's the first 5 questions of round 4 in the books.